Hey guys, what's going on, and welcome to our full review of Undertale. Now, if you didn't see the last one, actually it wouldn't be the last one, but if you didn't see the Cuphead review, we mentioned that we're kind of rebooting the old reviews that we did before we made this into like a professional thing. So if you harken back all the way to the beginning of the review series, you'll see that Deltarune Chapter 2 is there, Undertale, which is like an hour and 10 minutes long, Security Breach, and something else, or Cuphead. Which we've already rebooted Cuphead. So you'll notice that those videos no longer exist. So the Undertale review, which is like an hour and a half long, Cuphead, which is like an hour. That was the shortest one, at 50 minutes or something. But either way, they were way too long. We were trying to play the game while reviewing it, which was a terrible idea because we found ourselves like focusing more on the game than the thing itself. And so we weren't really good at doing reviews back then, but now we are. So we're rebooting the series and doing it all over again. So, with that being said, we're going to go on to the game company / creator. The creator of this game is Toby Fox. He was by himself during the Undertale age. Now that he's in Deltarune, he has a team working with him, but during the making of Undertale, he was completely alone. So everything you see in this game that we're going to be talking about is something one man did, which is pretty insane. So, yeah, so Toby Fox, again, similar to Scott Cawthon, not really much to talk about with him because that's how popular he actually is. He's done other, so he's mainly focused on Undertale and Deltarune, but he has crossed with other projects before, like on Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. He composed a track in that game. It's like a metal track, or I don't remember the exact track he mentioned that he did, but he has a track in that game. He does a lot of other different projects around the web, so he's very well known for just not only his games, but also the stuff he does, like besides Undertale and Deltarune. But moving on to what is done well, and boy, what is done well. There's a lot of things done well. First of all, the music is the most iconic music in the entire industry. When you hear, if you don't believe me, if you ever hear Megalovania outside of the video game world, first of all, you as a gamer automatically know what it is, but also people that don't even play games know what it is. That's how revolutionized Megalovania as well as the entire soundtrack is, because people that don't even play video games or don't even touch video games at all know what that song is and know where it comes from. That's how revolutionized it is. In terms of just the music track itself. Now, even another case of this as well, just because obviously Megalovania is like the top track that everyone knows, but even songs like Undertale, even songs like Glamour, Death by Glamour, like those songs people will use in their videos as like editing, because first of all, Toby Fox is awesome and allows creators to use the music from the game, and especially because like if you pay for the soundtrack, he's even more okay with it because you've already paid for the soundtrack anyway. But even if you haven't, he still allows you to music as long as you're using it tastefully. If you're trying to profit off of the music itself, then there's a problem. But if you're just making a quick edit about like something happening and you play Death by Glamour, Toby's gonna be like, all right, cool, have fun. Like, he doesn't care. Meanwhile, some other people like Nintendo, they care a lot if you play their music sometimes. So, but yeah, the music is all like astounding. The graphics are, we're gonna get into graphics and sound later, but the graphics are really cool for this type of game because they're obviously not high def graphics. It's not a game that would need that. The puzzles are kind of interesting as you get through the game. The characters, though, we're gonna get into story characters again. A lot of these are all sections later, but the story or the characters, though, my goodness, the characters really kind of add the soul to this game. Of course the story, we're gonna get into the story later. We're gonna go over like majority of these stuff later, but a lot of this game is well done. There's not much I can really say because we're gonna go into the more minute details of like the graphics, the sound, and all that stuff later. So yeah, I would say 100% a lot of stuff is well done. But moving on to what could be improved. Now, if you recall back to the hour-long episode, back when we started this, I couldn't really think of anything. So, and I still can't think of anything. So what we're going to do for this section is I'm going to refute some problems people have said about it before. Which is, the first one is that your character's too slow. Because if you recall in Deltarune, you can sprint. You have the option to walk or sprint. Now the difference is Deltarune is sure it's a story-based game and it's a story-rich game as well, but it allows if you like just bum rush the story, it's fine because you still get the story elements that you need. If you were to be able to bum rush Undertale, it would kind of lose the sentimental value that it has. I mean, especially in the genocide run when you just obliterate everyone. Because first of all, if you could speed run, it would double the chance of getting an attack, which kind of destroys the whole idea of like, oh, the monsters are scared of you now, so they're less frequently they're trying to avoid you, so you have like a less frequency of attack when it comes to them. So it kind of destroys the entire genocide run, I would say. With the pacifist run, it wouldn't destroy it as much, but it would still kind of take away from the sentimental value of, first of all, the music, because you'd kind of just bum rush areas and you'd get the new music in before the song even finishes. So it's one of those things that I think that if you were able to sprint, or let's say your speed was fast in general, I think it would kind of take away from the value of the story, either in the pacifist run or in the genocide run. More so in the genocide run, but definitely still in the pacifist run as well. And so I've never really agreed with that one, just because I think that Deltarune allows for that to happen, because first of all, the tracks are shorter, and the long ones that are in super big sections doesn't matter because you're in a super big section, so you're not going to speed through the run that anyway. So that one I'm not like too keen on, because I don't really agree with that one. Another one is that there's not I think one of the ones I saw recently was that the lore is a little crazy, which you can't say anything about because FNAF exists. So also another one I can't agree with. But a lot of the problems people have are either like personal problems, like they don't like the game just because it's not their type of game, which is perfectly okay. Or it's like problems that I think as an upcoming game designer myself, I don't agree with those types of changes, like the whole idea that the Frisk should move faster, like that one I said earlier. So those types of things I just don't agree with, because I think it would make the game less dramatic and less sentimental than it already is. So again, in terms of my own improvements, though, I can't think of anything I would improve to the game, because it's just the humor is on point. The story's on point. Like, there's so many things that I can't, like, if I were to improve it, I'd make it worse. So I can't really think of anything there. These two are welcome to chime in, and I can refute these two if they can even think of anything.
Yeah, I've been thinking. I'm trying to think.
Yeah. Well, we're not staying on this forever. That's what I'm saying. You have to think. You have to think really hard if you would change anything. And that's even coming from people that aren't game designers, right? So like that's the thing. So even if you can't think of anything, then that kind of assumes the point.
Yeah, I think the only one I can think of that maybe some people think of is that maybe they wish that they can like fast travel instead of trying to like, because if you're trying to go to like, let's say you were at Toyo's house and you're trying to get to the what's it called, the snow place or whatever, you would have to, instead of like trying to walk all the way over there, maybe some people wish that you can like fast travel or something like that.
Well, you can't go to Torio's house anyway. Once you get out of the ruins, you can't go back in there. So I get what you're saying though, but there is fast travel, and that's the river person.
Yeah.
And you just go down there, and they take you to the major three areas. The major three areas are Waterfall, Snowden, and Hotland. Hotland takes you right outside Alphys's lab. I forgot where Waterfall takes you. I think it's right before you get to Napstablook's house, which is kind of in the middle of like a shop and Undying. And then Snowden takes you right above Snowden, so there's a shop there, there's Papyrus, there's like all this stuff. So they take you to the major areas. But yeah, if you wanted to go to a minute area, then yeah, you'd have to do a little bit of walking. But I mean, again, I think it kind of does itself in terms of like, I think it's, again, the pacing of the game. That's the thing you gotta keep in mind, is the pacing of the game. And if the pacing of the game is super fast and you can bum rush everything, you can, because like, when you think of fast travel games, I think of Far Cry. I think of games where the map is so big that I don't feel like walking. Whereas Undertale, if you take a look at the map, like if you zoomed out, went into like fourth view or whatever, you could see that it's actually not that big on the surface. So it doesn't strike me as a game that would need fast travel at all. Like again, I think of Far Cry, I think of Just Cause, I think of Uncharted maybe, like games that have massive areas that need you, that like because another reason fast travel is in the game is because it, first of all, kind of acts as like, oh hey, our world isn't cool enough for you to stick around and walk in. which doesn't apply to every game that uses fast travel, but a lot of games that use fast travel, it's like, okay, our worlds aren't good enough for you to look at that you want to go through them yourself, so here, just skip ahead and go to this place. That's kind of what the fast travel mechanic is viewed as. And again, not every game is like that. I think like certain games, like I think the Far Cry franchise does have fast travel, but they use it tastefully. But I think there's a lot of other games that don't use it tastefully. So I think fast travel would completely demolish the pacing of the game. But Zach, can you think of anything?
Just with the genocide route, I don't know. It's just later on, especially when you get to mid Waterfall Hotland, it just gets boring waiting for that. And I know that is the point. That's the point. I know it is. I appreciate it, and I really do like it. I just don't like the execution factor of it, having to just walk around in circles. I get it. It's fun.
It's not walking around in circles, because that's another thing that people misconstrued with the game. Even myself, when I first played the game, was misconstruing. It is, you don't actually need to walk around in circles. In fact, the more you walk around in circles, the less likely you are to get a battle. Especially the way you tackle Hotland. Hotland is a good metric for this, because or Waterfall, I keep trying to say Underfall. Waterfall is like, I think it's 20 enemies or whatever it is. Snowden is whatever. But Hotland was like 40 something. And the way you battle that one is you just have either you can use a program to do this, or you can just do this yourself. You go on one of the pads, the things that's not the pads that shoot you somewhere, but like the conveyor belts, and you just hold down. Let's say you go on the up one, you hold down S, and then you eventually wait for a thing to happen. Or you can play it the normal way and just walk around, because the more you walk around, the more you're likely to get one. So, but if you're just going in the same areas in the same room, the game actually takes note of that and makes you get less frequently attacked, because people aren't obviously going to be just culminating in that room. So that's why it takes so long. And Zach mentioned he is self-aware that it's intentional, because it is. If you're literally slaughtering every person in the universe. So yeah, but either way, we're gonna move on to any problems or glitches. I think maybe when it first came out there might have been some, but as of right now, I don't believe there are any. Toby's really good about getting testers, and he's really good about making sure that all glitches are fixed. Because again, I don't think there is any, as far as I'm aware. And a lot of things that people might think are a glitch are intentional. It's kind of like a game we did before where I said that. But yeah, not that I'm aware of. So, moving on to controls. Now, Undertale is on every platform you could ever think of. So this is on PC, Xbox, Nintendo, PS4, whatever. But we're gonna stick to console and PC, because that's the main two demographics. So for PC, it's just WSD. You could also use arrow keys, I think, whichever you prefer. And then I think it's like you use the mouse and stuff to do stuff, but it's really easy controls, and they kind of teach you it as you go along. And then with controller, it's even easier, because the control stick, I think the best way to play this game, if you want precision, is probably using a control stick, because with WSD, that's how you move your heart around. But that's 4 cardinal directions. Now, obviously, you can do W and A to go like top left and like all that stuff. But with a joystick, you have full control over where you're going. So, and that's important, especially in the genocide run. So it depends on how you want to play the game. I personally think console for Undertale is the best way to play it, but I do know, because you can also play the PC version by using a controller. I'm aware that exists as well. So I think that's probably the best setup to play this game, is play it on PC, but with a controller. Because I think using a controller is the best way to go about doing the battles and stuff. But the controllers are very simple, and they teach you it as you go along. But moving on to music/sound. Now, the music in this game, I believe there's, 110 tracks? I forgot. 101. Now this includes like some tracks that like are obviously jokes, like the long elevator. That's literally a washing machine. You have a couple other ones that are like joke tracks. But either way, it's still a massive catalog of music. Because even removing the joke ones, that's still like 90 or 80 tracks that Toby composed himself. Again, you have to remember, this is one man that did this. It wasn't a team like what Deltarune is right now. It is one man that did this. So he composed all the songs, all the boss songs, all like the intermediate songs, everything. Every song that you hear in the game was composed by one person. And the music, again, like I said earlier, is so revolutionized that it's insane. You know what's crazy when people that don't play video games are like, oh hey, I recognize that song, and it doesn't have, like, yes, I'm mainly talking about Megalovania, but there's other songs like Undertale, Death by Glamour. A lot of the boss songs I noticed are recognizable and stuff. So yeah, like that's what's insane. So yeah, like I said earlier, the music is just astounding and it fits the game beautifully. I would never even think about trying to change the thing. I guess before I mentioned I couldn't think of anything. Literally the only thing I wished happened, and I see why the way Toby did this the way he did it though, is in the Genocide run when you fight Mettaton it's Mettaton, but you fight Mettaton Neo. That song, and I'm aware it's like a rendition of Battle of True Hero, but it's like a better version of the Battle of True Hero. But the problem was you just annihilate Mettaton immediately because you're just so powerful at that point that it's one slash and he's done. Which is pretty crazy, but the reason he did that was to show how powerful you truly are. Because remember, Neo is like the most defensive thing in the game. Because if you remember back to Delta in Chapter 2, Spamton has Neo form. He has power of Neo or whatever. So like he has super high defense when he goes into his like Neo form. So it's pretty crazy how like strong you actually get. But in terms of like the music, I wish that was a little bit longer because that was a really good track. But yeah, like you have Toriel's. I think it's just called Home. Is that the one that plays when you're in Toriel's house?
Correct.
That one's super like calming because you're in a super like he composed the music beautifully and also placed them beautifully. Like the music that's in the game is very awesome, and it's like I find myself humming to it even when I'm not playing the game, or if I am playing the game, I'm probably be doing it too. So yeah, music very fitting, also very well composed, and by one person. So there's that. And the sound effects are great. The sound effects are also iconic. If you hear the classic, like, when you go into a battle, people are like, oh, I know what that is. Like, that's how recognizable both the music and the sound is in this game. And again, same with the music. I think it's used very tastefully. I think it's very well dramatized because a lot of times, especially in the Genocide run, when you start to hear like a lot of the sound effects, like the slashing, the dust flying away, all those sound effects are really, really cool. There's also secret sound effects that you might not have even gotten because there's what's called the fun value, and if your fun value is not at a certain point, then you might not experience some of the secrets in the game. Like you can get a random phone call from Alphys trying to order a pizza. You can get a random phone call from someone, I don't know who it's presumed to be, but you get a phone call from someone asking if this is the right number. Like all that kind of stuff, right? And then there's also, you can see quote unquote Gaster. We don't, it's not really confirmed it's Gaster, but it's presumably Gaster. You get the Gaster. You can go to the Gaster testing room. Like there's all these different Easter eggs with the sound effects and stuff that you might not even gotten because your fun value might not have been high enough. So yeah, it's pretty insane how he managed to compose both the music and the sound for this game. Because if this game did not have good music or sound, I don't think that it would be as a gem as it is today, even with the story. Because again, a great story is told by both the story and the music. That's why movies are so powerful, because they have both. Well, they have three. They have the visuals, the story, and the music. But when it comes to games, if you don't have a good story alongside good music, so let's just say you had good story but no good music, then it's like, all right, well, you don't really feel a connection to the story as much as you would if there was music. And then if you have good music but not a good story, it's like, well, why not play this game? So I think he balanced it very well, and we're gonna move on to story and characters. Now let me tell you about the characters. So you have Frisk / Chara, depends on how you play the game. That's the player character essentially. And you have the main characters in the game, because I'm not going to go over every monster, because it's a whole bunch of cast, but we'd be here all day if I went over every character. So I'm just going to go over the major ones. You have Toriel, Goat Mom, as she's referred to. You have Sans, you know who she is. Papyrus, you have Undyne, you have Alphys, you have Monster Kid, I guess technically speaking, in terms of the main cast anyway. You have Asgore, you have who am I missing out of the main cast? That's it, right?
Azrael.
Oh, Azrael, that's right. Flowey / Azrael, again, depends on how you play the game. So yeah, that's the main cast though. Like that's the main cast. If we're talking about like side characters, I can mention Gerson, I can mention the shopkeeper. Like there's a lot of the side characters I mentioned, and then you have the monsters, Napstablook. Yeah, you have Dummy, Mad Dummy, Timmy, Mettaton. Oh, Mettaton was the main cast guy. That's right. either way, so you have all these different characters. Like, there's so many characters in this game that it's like, it's kind of hard to like I can't talk about all of them because we'd be here all day. But in terms of the main core characters, the ones we just talked about, they have every character has so much personality to them. They're all different. Sans is like this kind of goofy guy that doesn't really care about really anything until you make him care about something. Papyrus is like the happy-go-lucky guy that just wants to have fun and wants to be with his brother. You have Undyne, who is kind of war-ridden, and until you make her realize that there's more to the world than just like death and destruction. You have Alphys, who's like the shy kind of person, the shy nerd that's kind of like that has the liking towards Undyne, but also has a dark secret. If you go down the true pacifist run,
Also likes anime.
Also likes anime, which is like what's so it's basically a rendition of Zack.
No.
Then you have Metaton, who's kind of like this jokey game show host, especially in the pacifist run, right? Game show host guy that turns into Metaton X, which is like the Death by Glamour. That's where you hear the Death by Glamour song. At that point, he really just cares about his fans and stuff. You have Metaton Neo is different in that he's just trying to stop you. And then Toriel is Go Mom. She likes, she's kind of just caring. She tries to save every human that comes down here. Her story is actually kind of sad because there was, it was 7 human souls. So there's 6 humans that came before you that she couldn't stop them from dying. Like, that's kind of sad. It's like, hey, what's, like, she had all these different fails, like, and she was just holding on to hope. And she technically did fail with you, except you just don't die. I mean, you can in the game, but the story-wise, you don't. So it's kind of sad that the way her life was going is that she failed to save the 6 kids because they all went out and presumably died by either Papyrus, Asgore, who knows, Undyne. I think it's confirmed killed somebody. But either way, it's one of those things that it's kind of sad the way her story turns out. But it makes it up in the end, obviously. And then Asgore, Asgore is kind of like he's the quote-unquote final boss. And he's kind of just sad as well because him and Toriel used to be together and are now not. And essentially he's kind of just wants to get out. He's trying to free his people, so he's the king of the game. But yeah, that's the main cast, and they all have different personalities and stuff. So it's really cool, and they're really fun to kind of play through the game with. And then if we're talking about personalities, it's crazy because every monster also has a personality as well. It's insane how much characterization Toby did for this game. Because again, if you didn't add characterization to the monsters, because again, you can either choose to kill them or spare them, depending on how you want to play the game. And if you didn't add characterization to the monsters, it'd be like, well, these guys are kind of just bland anyway. Let me just murder them. Like, you wouldn't care about them as much as you would if they actually had like personality and stuff, which they do. So that's also really well done as well. But in terms of the story is that you are a kid that fell into the underground, and Flowey is the first creature to greet you. And of course, he tries to trick you into grabbing his little friendliness pellets, which if you grab them, it puts you at 1 heart, and he tries to murder you. If you dodge them, it's kind of funny. He kind of gets a little angry that you know what's going on. And that's another thing I didn't mention earlier, is that the game knows certain things that normal games don't. It knows when you've reset. It knows if you tried the genocide run and failed, and because he just wants to. I think his motive was he wanted to play with someone again because he was he's done all the different routes. Like Flowey admits in the genocide run, he admits that he's done all these things. He's reset the game. He's like burned every book. He's read every book. Like, that's the quote from the game. But it's like he's one of those things that he's done everything, every possible outcome. So he's tired of repeating the same thing over and over again. So he wants to do something new. Yeah. So yeah, in terms of story, you fall. Toriel saves you. You eventually persist past Toriel, whether you kill her or spare her, doesn't matter. You persist past her no matter what. And then you meet Sans Papyrus, and if you're doing a pacifist run, the only way this doesn't work is if you're doing a genocide run. But if you're doing a pacifist / neutral run, you hide behind the conveniently shaped lamp. Can't forget about that thing, conveniently shaped. And you go through this whole shebang with Papyrus trying to make you do puzzles and stuff. Which, is kind of funny because they often fail. and then you get past him by sparing him or murdering him. Again, doesn't matter which one. Just go through that, and you go through this whole long-winded kind of story essentially, like I said, until you reach Asgore. And then, well, actually, before that, the most important part is you reach sort of this like glowy cathedral-looking place where you talk to Sans after a long time, because I think Sans stops talking to you right before you get to Hotland. No, he's in Hotland. He's in Hotland a couple times. But either way, it's been a long time since you've talked to him, and he greets you there.
Yeah,
and he gives you the two choices. He gives you, if you're doing a pacifist snooch run, he gives you two choices. He's like, hey, you can either kill the king and go up to be with the people, or you can stay down here and you'll have a family and you'll have friends to help you. Because he basically tells you, like, hey, is it really worth doing that? Is it really worth destroying everything you built so far? And so he kind of gives you, like, this exposition about, like, what should you do? And it kind of makes you really think, like, oh, is it worth it? Like, is it worth it to try and kill him? Now, here's where things get interesting, and this was, like, a big shocker to a lot of people. And again, because you have the way the HUD works is you have fight, act, items, and mercy is what the buttons are called. And when you get to Asgore, he's like, oh, so you get to this fight. It's like, okay, here we go. Because the music plays, it's like, it's like 3 notes that kind of repeat themselves, but it's because it's like, oh, we both know what's happening here. We both know what's about to happen. And essentially, you get there, and Asgore, like, is like, oh, see you later, human, or whatever, because he's trying to act like he's sad about it. Pulls out this freaking devil trident, and then destroys your mercy button, like your HUD, like your mercy button in the menu, as if he knows that there's a menu. So that's crazy, because also it's like, oh, well, great, I guess I can't spare him anymore, because that's your immediate thought. It's like, oh, I can't spare him because he just destroyed my one mercy option. Now, obviously, there is a way to get around that, but that was, when I first saw that, my mind was blown. Because first of all, he broke the 4th wall, because that's an actual HUD thing. It's one thing if he just refused to be mercied, but he just full-on destroys the button in general. But he also acknowledges that you either want to spare him or you don't, and like that's pretty crazy. So yeah, and then of course I'm not going to go over everything, but there's a true pacifist run after you try the neutral run. There's a genocide run as well, like I mentioned earlier, which is very different. In the genocide run, Sans is actually kind of the main guy trying to stop you. So yeah, it's a very story-rich game, and we'd be here forever if I talk about it too long. So we're going to move on to replayability. If you want to think about it, you want to consider this, there's technically 6 possible endings, because there is the neutral run, which is you just stop playing after you get the neutral ending. There's actually, again, if you really want to go down the tree of knowledge here, if you really want to think about it, I think there would be 19 different neutral runs that you can do, because you have a neutral run for each level you get. So you have a neutral for level 2, for level 3, level 4, level 5, and you get it. And also, there's all sorts of things. And in the neutral run itself, depending on who you kill in terms of bosses, Sans and/or the gang will say something different. For example, if you go through the entire game and only kill Undying, right? You have a vendetta against her or something. You only kill her. In the neutral run, when Sans gives you the call, I think it's Papyrus that mentions, oh, I haven't seen Undying recently, we're getting worried about her or whatever. You don't get that if you spare her, obviously. And then, or if you just do a normal run anyway. And if you, let's say you go through your entire run and you only kill Papyrus, Sans at the end, like he acts like he's your buddy, he's like, oh yeah, all this stuff is happening, I haven't talked to Papyrus in a little bit or whatever. And then I believe, if I'm correct on this, he said, like, at the end of the phone call, he's like, oh yeah, by the way, go to hell. And he hangs up the phone, because he knows what you did.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like Sans and the gang have different dialogue depending on who you kill in your run. And that's just in the neutral run. So if you really want to consider it, there's all those different endings, quote unquote, in the neutral run. Then you have the true pacifist run, which I personally think is the best run to go for. You have the genocide run, which is really interesting. I'll talk about it in a second. And then you have this. This is why I'm putting this in the replayability section. If you, let's say you do a true pacifist run, and you're like, you know what? I want to see what the genocide run's all about. So you do the true pacifist run, and then you go start a genocide run. Now that you've done the true pacifist run, a genocide run will act sort of normal. And once you do the genocide run and you give up your soul, because you kind of have to in order to restart the game, otherwise Chara just kind of you and Chara to sit there in darkness. So if you do that and then you try and do a true pacifist run again, that's called the soulless true pacifist run. And you get the entire run is the same, except at the end, the very end of the game, you get a different cutscene where Toriel brings you the pie, and as soon as she leaves, Chara turns her head towards you with her eyes glowing. And I believe there's also the soulless genocide run, which is a little different, because I think Chara talks to you about, hey, we've been here before, like something like that, like the game knows again. So you can play this game for a long, long time and find new stuff. Now, it's not as infinite as Minecraft, so I'm not going to put it in that, like, the top tier, but it's definitely at the high end of the middle section, because there's so many Easter eggs, so many things that you're not going to get in your first playthrough. There's the fun value I mentioned before, where your fun value has to be at a certain thing to get, to meet certain characters and to get certain events to happen. There is so much stuff that you're not even going to get in your first playthrough. So, I'm going to say 100% it's going somewhere in the middle there, because there's so much to explore there. But moving on to personal takes. My personal take of this game is that it's amazing, and I think it was the perfect storm when it came out, because a lot of people, the indie, for example, I think this was 2014? No, that was DLC. What was this game?
This is 2015.
15, I
it's
think.
almost 10 years old now.
Yeah, almost 10 years old. But like DLC kind of helped revive indie games, but indie games were on a bit of a decline. Until this game came out and people put their faith in indie games again. And it's interesting because you have to think about yourself. You have to think about, oh, what would happen if this game didn't come out? I think the world would be a completely different place. Because again, Undertale is sprouted into non-video game areas too. It's sprouted into the freaking Pope has listened to Megalovania at this point. Like that's what you got to understand. It's not just gamers anymore that recognize these things. It is people around the world that don't even touch video games because A, they don't like them, or B, they just don't care to play them. But they are also the ones noticing this stuff. So like that's how crazy Undertale is. And even for back in its time, back in 2015, besides DLC and FNAF, people were kind of losing faith in indie games because a lot of indie games were coming out that were garbage. So it kind of helped revive the indie game world again. And like I said, you have to, like I mentioned before, you have to consider what the gaming industry would be like if this game didn't exist. Deltarune probably wouldn't be existing right now because of the massive success. If Undertale kind of flopped or something, Toby would be like, all right, well, I tried that, moving on, like something like that. So I think it was revolutionary for sure, 100,000,000%. Even like it's one of those games that wasn't just revolutionary to the gaming industry; it was revolutionary to the world in general. So yeah, I think it was a perfect storm again. I think the characters were flawlessly done. I think the dialogue was well done. Everything in this game, I really can't complain on because it's awesome. But we'll move to Zachary.
Yeah, what I will say about this game, because there's so freaking much that I can talk about, right? It's just fun, you know. You just get to play a game and just play with a bunch of characters that you almost kind of just get like attached to, and I'm not talking about like in a stereotypical type of way with a lot of other games. No, these guys are practically alive with how like different they are. Like they have practically you will almost never play the same game of Undertale twice in a row, ever. You will almost always get new stuff. Almost always. Guarantee you. It is that insane how built this game is, if you will. It has so much to it that if I wanted to, I could like you said, we could just be here all day talking about this game. Maybe even a day and a half. It's actually insane, but you know, it's just that it's really fun. And it's just iconic at this point. It's just really hit its mark in the world today, you know?
Yeah, we'll get to this one in a second, but I almost forgot about this too, because I was going to talk about it during replayability, but in the Genocide run, this is an RPG. A lot of RPGs is you're meant to kill people, you're meant to just kill enemies and be like, oh, these guys don't matter, blow through them, get leveled up, and beat the final boss. That's kind of how this works. In Undertale, though, if you do that, if you play like a typical RPG, well, I guess it's not typical RPG, because typical RPGs, you don't try and kill every enemy in the game. Undertale, you specifically have to go after every enemy and kill them. If you go for a Genocide run, you're rewarded with nothing. You get nothing. For being a genocidal maniac, killing every person that you know and love, you get nothing. Unlike typical games where it's like, oh hey, you're maxed out your level, congratulations bud, pat on the back, go defeat the final boss now. No, you're rewarded with a black screen and Chara deleting your save file. That is what you're rewarded with. And I think that is the perfect thing to do for this type of game. Because again, you went after specifically to kill every person you could. And for that type of ending, flawless. I think this game wouldn't have been as good if Toby just was like, all right, cool, you did it, congratulations, end the game, credits roll, right? There's no credits, there's no exposition of who Chara is or what she's doing, there's no celebration, there's no fanfare, there's nothing. You are rewarded with a black screen after Chara said, see you later, you've earned this yourself. I think that's genius. And I forgot to mention that before, but the Genocide run is honestly, it's not like, I think the True Pacifist run is the best run to get, but in terms of the Genocide run, you learn so much about the actual underlying story, and again, you also are rewarded with nothing at the end of it. I think that's the best.
You don't deserve anything.
Because you don't deserve anything. You are a genocidal maniac that specifically went after to kill everybody you know. You deserve it. That's what you get, and the game that's what the game shows you, and I think that's the best. I don't think any other game has done that. I could be wrong, but I don't think any other game has done that where it's like, hey, you specifically went after every enemy you could go after, or every friend even that you could go after. And because remember, you have to keep in mind that most people do the True Pacifist run first because that's the first thing the game kind of narrows you in like to go after. So you get attached to the characters, you do all this stuff, and then you as a player want more. You want to do the other run because you know it exists, and you want to do the other run to see what new stuff will happen. And the game plays on that, and is like, oh, you want to kill everyone you know and love? Go for it, but you were rewarded with absolutely nothing. So I think that's the best thing they could have. I think that's the best thing Toby could have done with that. But Zach, did you have any other things?
Here's the thing about this game. If you do a genocide run, the game basically just tells you, and just basically the game will quite literally makes you try to stop doing a genocide run to reset, because I feel like at some point, like, the game tells you, hey, I mean, you don't really have to reset all the time, and then the genocide run is telling you, hey, reset, this is awful. It makes you regret what you're doing, and it makes you really just hammer in, hey, you're a piece of freaking crap for what you're doing. I think that's really freaking cool. I think it's really ingenious.
Also, the story of the genocide run is sad because if you think about it, once you get past Undying, because Undying and Alpha, before you get to Undying and Alpha, it's like, this is off camera and stuff, but they talk about saying, hey, if anything happens to me, board up everyone. They're presumably in the True Lab, but like, go make sure everyone's safe and hide yourselves away, because like, if I can't stop them, no one can. And once you get to that point, you have to consider the bosses you face after her, because Alphys went through Hotland and like tried to gather up everyone she could. Meaning she could have easily grabbed Muffet, she could have easily grabbed Metaton, she could have easily grabbed everyone. Which means, because you fight Muffet in the Genocide run, you still fight Metaton, which is Metaton Neo now. That means that they specifically chose to stay there to at least try and stop you from going. Like, they know they're gonna lose. That's the sad thing. They know you're gonna kill them, but they're hoping that by stalling you for a little bit, it will prevent you from killing more people. And that's the saddest thing, is both Metaton and Muffet specifically stay behind, specifically because they know that you're going to kill them. They know that they're going to die at the end of this. But they're only doing it to make sure to try and stall you for as much time as they possibly can before you go back to your murdering spree. And it's like one of the saddest things. I've even read a comment a long time ago when I watched people play this game. Someone even said that, oh, they were going through the genocide run, they got to Sans, and once they killed Sans, they were so sad they reverted back and went to a true pacifist run because they couldn't handle it. So they got all the way, beat Sans, and then they didn't want to deal with it anymore, so they went back to doing a true pacifist run. Like, that's how powerful the game makes you feel when it comes to this kind of stuff. So yeah, but we'll move on to Isabel so she can talk about it.
Yeah, one when I first played this game, I was just super impressed of how in-depth just one single man put in to make this. Cause I mean, I don't know how long it took for Toby to make this game, but however long it took, it was so worth it because I have not seen any other RPG game that has went so in depth with like the story and characters as much as Undertale. Cause like you and Zachary said, like with the genocide run, like the game gives you that decision, but at the end you're given what you deserve. But if you do something different, then you get like a happy ending. You get the details that you deserve because you were a good person that decided to spare everyone and try to like stop Flowery / Azrael from trying to take over everything. And it's really cool how just like if you told me that this game was made by one person, I would not believe you because it's just super insane that something this great of a game was just designed by a single man. So that's just really impressive.
All right, so we'll move on to is it worth it? For some reason, I guess I was wrong. For some reason, I thought the game was $15. It is not. It is $10. If there is any game that's worth your $10, $10 can't even get you a Big Mac meal anymore. It's $11 for a Big Mac meal. So instead of going to McDonald's wasting $11 on a Big Mac meal, which you can make at home, spend your $10 on Undertale because you get so much content out of it. Zach mentioned this earlier that you will probably never play the same run twice just because of how different events can unfold, but also because it's $10. That is like one of the cheapest games out there. Like $60, I would pay $60 for this game, and it still would be worth it to me. So $10, 1,000,000% worth it. That's not even on sale, by the way, because we don't count sales because for you it might not be on sale, but for us it might. So that's irrelevant. So I've seen this game go on sale quite often, especially during like Christmas events, Easter events, like any holiday really it goes on sale. So like it usually goes on sale for 25 or 50% off. 50% off would be $5. So in any universe, whatever price it may be to you, it's probably worth it. So I would say absolutely 100%. We're moving on to the final rating, which is out of 10. So again, I've said this up and down that if I can't find any flaws with it, then is it perfect? Like that's the question you have to ask. And again, I think when I mentioned before that I think it's a perfect storm for when it came out. And again, you have to remember how much this game has reached out. Sans is in Smash now. Sure, he's not an actual character for like quote unquote, but he's still a thing in the game. And Megalovania is also in the game because Toby composed like a slight remix of it for Smash specifically. And there's other games where like Sans is referenced. Those games are Undertale's references. Like that's how revolutionized this game was. And I still think to this day that Undertale is one of the only perfect games out there. So you may disagree, and if you can find flaws, then that's great. I can't though, especially with the ones that I refuted before, like Frisk isn't fast enough or whatever. Then I'm gonna give it a 10. I still think it is a perfect game for its time, and I think that because if remember, it's revolutionized everywhere. People that even don't play video games know the game, and people that don't play video games know the music, all that sort of stuff. If you can get someone that doesn't play video games ever, doesn't like video games, and play them a song from Undertale and they immediately know what it is, that is revolutionary. And that is game-breaking for a game like this. So I'm going to say it's a 10. I think it's one of the only games on the market for to be a perfect game. And I've watched so many sort of like in-depth like analysis of Undertale that also say the same thing. I watched this I forgot his name, but he had his parents play the game, and his parents, he mentioned at the start of the video, were not gamers. They hated games. They didn't like games at all. And at the end of the series, his parents loved the game. They loved how cool the story was. They said it was like watching a really good movie. Like that, like, so when you can kind of change people's perception on video games just from one game, I think it's perfect. I think it's a perfect storm, and I think it's one of the only games that are perfect on the market. But Zach, we'll go to you.
Okay. This game is incredible, alright? It's just filled with so much life. It is incredible, and I love it so much, and it has changed and shaped the world so much. But, however, I just personally don't like playing the genocide run. I like the stuff that's in it. I like the story, and I like what it does with the genocide run. I love that to a T. I just don't like playing it. I just find it boring. But that's also just me with the fact that I hate grinding. I do not care what anyone says. I know for a fact, and I know that it's part of the reason, because there's like different at points in different levels that Toby Fox tries to use to make you stop doing the genocide run by making, like in Hotline, adding 40 characters. He's trying to bore you. He's trying to make you bored so that you quit. I know that. I just don't like doing it. And you may disagree with that.
Well, reviews are all about like factual information, though. So if you find it boring, that's all well and good. But it doesn't mean that it doesn't hinder the game. Like, that's not the game's fault. That's a you thing.
Yeah, but
that's the difference.
Well, that's the thing, though. Everyone's gonna have bias with it. Everyone will. You can't just completely take that away, unfortunately. And everyone will have a different view on this game. There's gonna be some people that freaking hate this game. There just will. There's gonna be someone that hates every game out there. Like, there will be one person that hates every single Mario game. Well, I'm not saying that one person hates every Mario game, but for every game out there, there will be one person who doesn't like it.
Well, some people also just don't like it because everyone else likes it. That's also a thing that exists. Is people will not like something just because everyone else likes it, because they want to be different.
Right. Well, some people will actually like have a reason to not like it. That is somewhat reasonable. We just haven't heard them. We just haven't heard their opinion. They just may not say. They just may not say it. But me personally, if for a game to be a 10, because there's no such thing as a high or low 10. That's not a thing. You're just 10. So, if to be a 10, you have to have nothing wrong with you anywhere. And for the most part,
in terms of the game, yes.
Yeah. But me personally, I just don't like grinding. So because of that, I can only give it's a stupid high 9. 9.999, but it's still a 9. And you're gonna disagree with that. I know that. There's gonna be a lot of people that disagree.
I'm only disagreeing because you're judging it on your own personal hatred towards grinding.
Right.
Which is not a fault of the game. That's a fault of yourself.
Yeah, but
if you don't like something, that's your problem, not the game's fault.
Yeah, but I could still take away from like my enjoyment of playing it.
That's the point. that is exactly. You said that you're self-aware. You're self-aware that that's the entire point of especially Hotland. Hotland makes a very good point of like, hey, stop doing this. You have 40 characters. How about you just go read a book or something?
Right.
Like,
I know that.
The game actively tries to stop you.
But if I were to actually do that, it's just why would I want to do something that's boring to get to something, you know? When I could just
revert and go do a true password run.
Which is exactly the point. It's just, and I was like, but either way, I'm just gonna give it a 9. You're gonna disagree with, I know that, but that's just where I stand, and that's that. You can't change my mind. Sorry.
I'm just saying, when we do professional reviews, you gotta take into account the actual facts, though. But Isabel, what about you?
Yeah, other than like cause if I'm correct, I believe I played like a tiny bit of games that require like more grinding than Undertale for like the genocide run. I don't really mind the grinding, but it could possibly be worse. But ignoring the grinding part of like the Hotland and genocide run, I honestly see nothing wrong with Undertale, so I'm also going to give it a 10.
Yeah, and also grinding, if used tastefully, is fine. Like, Xenoblade, I think, is a good example of grinding that's not used tastefully. That is a game that you sort of need to grind a little bit, and that can get super repetitive. But when it comes to Undertale, the reason that it exists in the first place is because, again, it does two different things. It's trying to, first of all, stop you from doing the genocide run, which we talked about already. But it's also, B, trying to make you realize that you are actively going after every single person you encounter and trying to murder them. Like the plane, you kill them and they freaking fall to the sky and explode. Like, it just depends on how tastefully it's used, and I think Toby used it tastefully by trying to do different things with it. Whereas Xenoblade is like, yeah, you know, here's grinding things. You go grind for 50 minutes so you can actually get to this point in the game, because like that's not used tastefully. That's just used for the sake of using it. And again, I don't like grinding either. I mentioned this on the Xenoblade series probably. I've mentioned this on other games that's grindy as well. I don't like games that are grindy either. But because Undertale actually used it tastefully and used it in a way that is meaningful to the actual story of the game, it's not grinding for the sake of grinding. It's not boring because it's just boring. It's boring because it's trying to be boring. That's the difference with other games. Like Xenoblade, it's boring because it's boring. It's not boring because it's trying to be boring. It's just boring because it is. Whereas Undertale, it's like, hey, we don't want you to continue this run. Go back, revert your save, do true paths run, do paths run, whatever you want to do. Just stop doing this. And if you persist, and this is the entire mantra of determination. Determination literally means to keep going. So when you're trying to kill every person you are, because Char has determination still, that's what that means. So it has 3 different meanings, actually, now that I think about it. So that's why I gave it a 10, because I think grinding is, like, even if you hate it, which I do, I don't like grinding either, Undertale is one of the only games, if not the only game, that's used it for not only the story, but also uses it as a method to talk directly to the player, in regards to, hey, maybe you should stop, or hey, maybe, or like just to show you how evil you actually are by going through all that. So, yeah, there you go. Again, there's not many perfect games out there, but I think based on the game itself, I think it was a perfect storm for when it came out, and it still holds up today, because obviously there's Deltarune that's coming out that has references to Undertale. It has all sorts of stuff in Undertale as well. Yeah, I think that's gonna do it. So we do custom modules for these, so you can check that out over on the left. You might, I don't know when this is gonna come out, because I'm gonna try and move them to more accurately to where they should have came out. We're still gonna redo Security Breach. We're not gonna redo Deltarune Chapter 2, because we're gonna wait for Deltarune to come out a little bit more before we start reviewing Deltarune. Yeah, so just keep that in mind. So Deltarune Chapter 2 is going to be fully deleted until we get to a point where we want to do Deltarune again. Yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.